infrastructure development except when it benefits them, ladies and gentlemen. We think this is a problem, and we need to pay attention to this. Ladies and gentlemen, the more we create tax incentives or tax holidays for these particular people, it just means we are making it harder for domestic investors. In the sense that for them, they have first of all to acquire the other pieces of, for example, the land and whatsoever, and to it they have to what we are losing in tax incentives is so high because all right.
Okay, thank you so much, the frequent speaker and today's judges. This House supports the elimination of tax incentives and exemption for foreign investors. Dearest judges, in this debate, we are here to analyze about the importance of the tax incentives and exemptions for foreign investors that we've been having. Which impact has it been having to our country, and which impact can it have in case it is not eliminated? We as team opposition disagree with tonight's government, which says we should actually eliminate tax incentives from the people who come to invest in our country. That's the foreign investor.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I think I missed out on you. Allow me to restart you. Your team. You're the second team, right? Your team, Khartoum.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start again. I had made a mistake on your timing. Okay, can start. You can start.
Okay. Okay, well, this house supports a elimination of tax incentives and exemption for foreign investors. Various judges, international resolution. We are here to understand the impact of the elimination of incentives and exemption for foreign investors. Which positive impact has it been having, if at all? Actually comes here and generalizes that it is going to limit all the tax incentives that has been given to the foreign investors. We agree with it and we go with that. Dearest judges, tonight's resolution, we have to understand what are the impact, what are the negative impacts of elimination of tax incentives, and we should actually first of all understand why in the first place they were put. Dearest judges, is the government actually satisfied with what the incentives have been doing? If yes, it is going to see, maybe it is going to come and tell us that they have actually failed what they would have promoted. And team government comes here and tells us they are going to incentivize domestic investment. Can we really invest? Do we actually accept that the foreign investors can invest more in our own country than our own people? They partially agreed and maybe partially disagreed, but according to what they have said, they actually agree that the foreign investors have more money than the investors that we have in our own country. That's our own domestic investors. And they again agree that the foreign investors may use cheaper technologies in our own country to maybe outcompete our domestic investors. But we're coming up to ask them a question. What if the foreign investors actually come to invest in our own country and bring cheaper technology, which we actually need? Would they actually say we don't need the cheaper technology in our own country, and yet our own investors cannot actually manage it? If we want, they are forgetting that a country that we are in now is actually a developing country, and we need more investments in our own country. And we as team opposition are saying, if we don't incentivize foreign investors, we are going to lose out on investments. We are going to discourage them from coming to invest in our own country. And what happens if we discourage the foreign investors from coming to invest in our own country? We are looking at revenue reductions. Now, look at the fact that we are going to get little revenue just because we have failed to allow investors and incentivize their investments. Now, as a country that is developing, do we really need low revenue at this time? Look at the people in our own country who are unemployed. And we agree that the investors that we have in our own country, our local investors, cannot actually employ the people that we are having. They're going to come here and tell us, yes, they have been investing and maybe there is still unemployment. But we're going to tell them that they have been actually the tax incentives and exemptions they've been having may not have been the best, and maybe they could continue add on the taxes. But those judges, they come here and tell us they think the domestic investors can actually invest more and do this. Dear judges, today's government is forgetting that we should also live in harmony with the different countries that we are in. What about the international relations of our country with other countries? Imagine a country that doesn't want people from different countries to come and invest in its own country. Well, actually, the other countries allow its citizens to go and invest in their own country. Are they going to have international relations in our own within our region? Then there's going to be little or no donations. Imagine a country that is developing, and because we have restricted from foreign investors, now they have refused to give us donations. They have refused to give us grants. Now, imagine a country like that, which is Uganda. So they are going to come. The team government comes here and tells us that they are going to look at the agriculture sector in our own country, which they believe is the leading would be the leading actually part of investment. But we are coming here to tell team government that what if the investors actually are coming to invest in our own agriculture? Would we not accept that? Because we realize there are the people that have a lot of which would be used to invest in our own agriculture sector. The people that have cheaper and better technology, which would be actually used to in our own agriculture sector. Now, what happens if at all we only have our people? Dear judges, the team government comes here and tells us we have 100 millionaires in our own country, or 100 plus millionaires in our own country. And if we have 100 and plus millionaires in our own country, look at 100 and plus billionaires or trillionaires in coming to our own country to invest. Will actually the investment be the same, dear judges? Tonight's government is not understanding what we should. We as team government, our opposition are saying we should not eliminate tax incentives and exceptions from foreign investors, because as we do that, we shall be discouraging investment, and yet we are the country that needs more of investment. Two, we are going to be
Godwin, we cannot hear you.
Okay. Hello. I think we lost Godwin.
We lost him. I don't know what we can do.
Move to the next speaker because I think his time was done.
Okay.
Mm. Can the next speaker please start?
Hello, I hope I'm audible.
Why is this Masete Arthur?
Yes, it's me.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0, start.
This House supports elimination of tax incentives and exemptions for foreign investors. First of all, I would like to start off by telling you that foreign investors were not always foreign investors. They started out as national investors. They invested in their own country. So I'm just saying that if their government also kind of stifled them and caused them to die, well, where would they be by now? So it's also the government's duty to its citizens first to promote their growth and its growth as a nation as well. Because as we said, eventually the foreign investors will bail on us. Like as you've seen recently, AfriCell and ShopRite, they are closing shop, maybe because they're not profitable or for some other reason. But eventually it's your own that will support you. Now, the previous speaker came and told us that what? That maybe, he said maybe the multinationals are actually investing in agriculture, but that's just not true. The agriculture sector is heavily reliant on the actual Ugandans themselves because it's actually really informal. Very little capital is going in there in mechanization and all that. Most of the foreign investors actually, selling technology, as he said, and that's where the money is. And it begs a question, like, if we incentivize them to come, then why are we giving back exactly what, like, all the revenue that we need from them? It's just not helping because guess where we are getting the money to pay them from? We are piling on national debt, because we are incentivizing these people. Moreover, you realize that the incentives we give them back, we could have been channeled to what? To improving the infrastructure of the country, hence lowering the cost of production for the small businesses so their efficiency can rise. In fact, improving the infrastructure attracts more investors to come into the country. But hey, let us give back all the money that we could be using to improve ourselves and have what? And be somewhere off, better off in the next 10 years. Surely it will not be easy to get there, but it's the better path for us to take. And we're also not suggesting war, as he said about international relations being ruined. This is business, you know. If it favors you, you continue to operate. If it doesn't, well, you tried, right? So just because we want to get our fair pound of flesh does not make us bad. It's what we signed up for. So it's very important that we maintain our profits and grow at scale. Also, on the point of economies of scale, like actually I hinted on that on the infrastructure part, because business is better for everyone when everything is going fine. And let me actually now show you what these multinationals actually bring on board. For instance, they are bringing pollution, they are forcing our businesses to go out, and the money that we could have used to, you know, improve upon the environment, for that pollution that they have actually increased in the environment, well, it's all going back to them. So guess who is left in a loss?
Some inquiry.
It's okay. Yes, please.
I would like to know what are the economies of scales?
Economies of scale, lower cost of production because of better infrastructure. Okay. And as I was saying, first of all, small businesses are losing customers because their quality of production is not the same as these multinationals. So they're losing their business to these people. So they're actually holding negative profits. That's one thing. So it's important that we, as the government, maybe incentivize those that are being pressed out of business, just to level the playing field for everyone. It's really demoralizing because a lot of small businesses really do not get past the first few months of operation because, well, they are not doing anything. They're not really, you know, making a profit, and they're not growing. We lose too much business because of the infrastructure that is subpar. For instance, I was actually on the point of how the quality produced by these multinationals is much higher. So they actually charge higher prices, and yet the small business has lower quality, so they cannot charge the same prices, yet they are paying higher taxes. So you realize that at the end of the day, it's really just terrible. And the private sector, which is where the multinationals really are, is largely operated by foreign investors, almost half of it. So with these points, we beg to affirm that it's not viable to build an economy on favors. I mean, we are treating them as favors because you think that they are doing us a favor by operating here, which is not the truth. There are other incentives, like maybe you can put like idle land to use. That can be an incentive for these people. They can come and set up their factories here, and they continue to operate. And it's also true that they might manufacture stuff here, but they will actually export it to another country. So they're just using us to set up in the next country, which they will exploit, whose tax system they'll also exploit to continue growing and growing and growing, while we actually still for our own upcoming business. Also, the sector for these incentives are not really formal. You know, it has encouraged growth of corruption because they're done behind closed doors. We do not know what happens. So we might as well just do away with the whole thing. Okay, thank you so much.
Can we have the next speaker?
Hello? Hello?
We can
Are
hear
you
you.
getting me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So,
We can hear you, Hosea.
listen, because iPhone got a problem. So probably I would want to first look at what the government speakers have tried to put across, and which is probably contradicting. Probably the first speaker on the opening government said that the foreign investors normally bring cheaper goods which outcompete the domestic investors. And the second one is saying that they normally bring their goods which are very much expensive, yet the local investors have cheaper goods. So I don't know which is which. Why are you contradicting yourselves? So another thing, you are talking about incentivizing only the domestic investors. What if we like incentivize both the foreign and the domestic? What would like be gaining the country? How much would the country gain in that? And the second speaker also believed in maintaining the domestic profits, which are very small to our country. Yet we need a lot of income to support our development. So probably they stressed much of their concern about agriculture, and yet we are looking at foreign investors having enough income and capital to invest in our agriculture, which would make it prosper very fast than our local investors. So at least I would support that if we encourage foreign investment in our country, and probably like in agriculture that most of them are looking at, would make it get boosted very fast. And if we look at eliminating these tax incentives and exempting them, probably it would discourage this investment from the foreign investors. And what are we getting from these foreign investors? They are giving a lot, like they are supporting employment opportunities to our country. And from that employment opportunity that our country is gaining from them, our local people who are employed in the investments of the foreigners are also paying tax after gaining their salaries. So in turn, the country is gaining. So we cannot say that we exempt the incentives. These people, when they come, the people get employed and later they pay taxes. Again, we have to know that we are not exempting them for good that they will not pay tax later. They will have to. And probably the tax incentives looks at a certain percentage of tax to be paid by the foreign investors. That means we are not losing at all. So it is also providing our country. So, and these people come in here, the foreign investors, we are getting that international relations. And from the international relations, we get the donations and grants from the foreign countries, because probably they have that much capital, and our currency is low and their currency is high, and we get that income from the exchange. And I would try to put this across, how will they promote international relations if they are not probably giving a chance to the foreign investors to come here and do something great for our our country. And also, aren't like I would like them to put across, aren't we having foreign investors investing to get better in infrastructure in our country? Because we see the Chinese here, and that is great investment that they are contributing to our country as they provide employment. So also, like providing these tax incentives and some exemption for foreign investment, foreign investors, will encourage economic development. And probably when it encourages economic development, a lot of infrastructure will be put in our country, and we shall be able to have a lot from them. And because they are able to put their businesses and their investments and prosper very fast, thus it will also provide employment opportunities, and probably because our country cannot, as it is the most important source of income to the families, as well as the paying of taxes. So, dear judges, I would like to rest my case from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Is this Elizabeth? Elizabeth?
Yes,
Okay, 3, 2, 1, start.
okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, August House. So ladies and gentlemen in this August House, the question in today's debate is, should we exempt tax for foreign investors and the incentive? So as Team Affirmative, we come to tell you that this does not do best for our country. So I would love to tell you that the government of Uganda must put its citizens at its foremost interest. It must be obliged to put its citizens above all things, above the development, because its people must come first. So we think that on these grounds, the government cannot choose foreign investment over its people. And that is what has been happening in today's society. So I'm here to show the clash points of today's debate. So as Team Affirmative, we came and told you that the percentages that are being lost due to tax exemption to foreign investors is too high. We cannot ignore. Our first speaker came and gave you that statistics. 16% of our total tax revenue recently by URA in 2018 was being lost, a whole 16%, which could fund our agricultural budget, was lost due to exempting tax to these foreign investors. So as Team Affirmative, we think that money is too much. That money could add a lot of value to our country. So why don't we add that value to our country instead of giving it back to the foreign investors, who in the end will take it to go and have what? Private vacations in Dubai. We think that money could do a lot of good for the nation. And that is why we think we are deciding to choose our people over these foreign investors. So ladies and gentlemen, we as Team Affirmative think it is a win-win situation when the tax exemption is actually scrapped off, ladies and gentlemen. We think it's a win-win situation. How exactly does this work? Now, Team Negative comes and creates this whole illusion that when we exempt tax, these investors will not come. Ladies and gentlemen, Uganda is a place of opportunities. It is more like when you're going to buy a good dress. There are people who are going to buy the dress at 30,000. But then when the price increases to 50, there will still be people to buy it because they know it is worth it. Now, that is the same situation with Uganda. Uganda is a very good place for opportunities. Now, when there is tax exemption, these people can benefit a lot from our nation, and it is them that grow. As much as we grow, the question is, to what extent? To what extent are we gaining compared to them? When in the end we lose billions and billions through tax revenue. So we think, let the taxes stay there normally. Let us not give them these incentives. In the end, there will be investors to come, but they see Uganda as the land of opportunities, how it is. So they will be able to come and they will still invest as much as it is going to cost them more. Now, allow me explain an effect to you, ladies and gentlemen. It is called a chain of money and development. Now, imagine the 16% that is lost to them in tax exemption. Imagine we have that 16%. We improve on the infrastructure in our nation. What does it mean? Better roads. What does it mean? The goods that they produce, the services that they offer will have better infrastructure to prosper, which means that businesses will actually gain more in the long run. They will actually have more sales. If our country has been improved, the question is, should we lose this money in the initial stage of their investment, or to they lose the money due to the poor infrastructure, due to the money that we sacrifice? In the end, we'd see that it's getting a loss. Rather than if we actually get this money, the 16% which we are taking it back, then we need to develop infrastructure, then they will have better businesses because the businesses will prosper and in the end they will have more sales. So as Team Affirmative, ladies and gentlemen, the argument we are trying to bring here is this percentage is too much. We cannot ignore, and it could do a lot for our nation. So another argument we bring to today's house is we need to support domestic investors. We cannot support foreign investors at the expense of the domestic investors in the name of them having more money, them being able to develop our people. No, ladies and gentlemen, we give our people an opportunity to compete. We need to put them first. So, our customer I'd love to bring to you in these people come, they bring their money. Yes, people are going to get jobs. That is a fact we need to accept. Yes, accepted.
Oh, thank you. So, would you mind on basing on in favor of the people only, not only generating and putting in consideration the economic development? For what importance would you mind getting people in the favor of people yet we are not benefiting? Take a look in the COVID-19 situation. The government of Uganda opted its investors so that they have
15 seconds. I would love to inform you. Yeah. I would love to inform you, we are not chasing away these investors. No, we are just telling them that this investment is going to cost you a lot more. That no, we are not going to give you the discount we used to give you because it affects us more. So, ladies and gentlemen, the question is, how are you going to keep giving someone a discount when in the end you lose much more in the long run? So, as Team Affirmative, we see that when Uganda gives these incentives, we lose much more. The purpose of this investment coming to the nation so that we could gain, so that as a nation we could develop. But now, if actually these incentives are lost and as a nation our development is much slower, so it means that Uganda is not gaining as much as it would with these incentives scrapped off. So we're not chasing away the investors. We are just telling them they can invest at a much higher cost. And for those who know that Uganda is a land of opportunity, of which it will, their investments will gain. They will come and invest in the long run. Another argument we came and told you is these investors bail out in the long run. We cannot rely on them. For how long are we going to rely on them because they have more money? Let us trust our people. As the first speaker said, people in Uganda have money, millionaires. So when you don't give them favorable circumstances to establish their businesses, through incentive of domestic businesses, that means that in the end it is going to be the white man, the foreign investors, to invest compared to our people and gain more. How has this happened? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to look at our country. More than 50% of the private businesses and corporations are being owned by foreign investors. Yes, Uganda gets jobs, but in the end, majority of the money goes back to them. Do you know the kind of jobs that Ugandans get? Jobs where they actually
Hello.
300,000 in a factory. So we think,
Hello.
yes, please.
Actually, your time is already up. The record has already timed you out. Eh?
Okay, can I summarize in 15 seconds? Or it's not allowed? Hello, can I summarize in 15 seconds?
Can we have the next speaker, please?
Okay, thank you, today's judges. We team opposition as the motion the exemption for foreign investors. In this regard, we disagree. It is better for that to promote tax incentives and tax exemptions on foreign investors. For example, if these tax foreigners investors come into a country, there will be the development of economic growth. For example, we take a look on the government's choice of the current situation in the COVID-19. The government of Uganda opted for the Chinese engineers to come and make some infrastructures for us, and of which the local and other people on a low level, they are benefiting much, rather than considering a Ugandan citizen without the trained skill. They came into Uganda. They offered to people some gifts. They were rewarded of free internet or free airtime, of which it promoted high customers, and through that, with time, people started loading their own airtime, and more revenue was generated on tax. Then the rate of unemployment in Uganda will have decreased. For example, if more foreign investors come in a country, we take an example of Dacia Free Sale and the Chinese companies under construction. As they come in a country, our youth, the unemployed students, the youth will have opted for working with these foreign investors so that they can earn a living. Then international relations with the government, with other countries. For example, our country, Uganda, the government of Uganda, if these foreign investors are allowed in a country, we shall have much international relations through connections. For example, if our Minister of Education, for example, it is weak, or the URA offices are weak, we shall connect with other countries so that we get and we match the relationship, how we can operate through modernized skills and technologies. Then I pose a question to the affirmative side. You said that if international investors come into a country, relations will have failed. How could they fail? For example, if these Chinese companies come in Uganda, more relations will have been promoted because we negotiate, we share ideas. Then as those relations, international relations through foreign investors come in a country, more donations and grants will be earned to the country, which provide hence a more revenue and hence easier provision or access of services. Then to the team affirmative, the first speaker said, for example, he considered the URA, the Uganda Revenue Authority, that it will have decreased its taxes. No, it won't decrease the taxes, but in case, but rather it increases more. For example, if these Chinese come into our country, they sign some contracts. For example, let's take a contract of 10 years. Through those as they will be performing the country's work and also doing other activities around, for example, purchasing and training our untrained youth, hence more skills. Then another speaker from the affirmative side talked of domestic investors, and his best point was basing on domestic investors, that if these domestic investors are considered in a country, that for you would rather protect people's lives, you would mind about your people, not minding about the economic growth of the country. So for what importance would the country be? For what importance would the country get more favor for its people rather than getting economic growth? If you mind about people but they don't have any help, for example, services, getting treatments, getting other skills like technologies. Take a look now, like the use all students. We are currently using online studies, but it is under the help of foreign investors. Had it not been the foreign investors, this our own inter-university debate, it wouldn't have took place, because the foreign investors have more skills than the domestic investors. Then another affirmative speaker talked of the tax holidays, that the methods of production will have reduced. For example, then he based on his point, you based on incentives, that rather than foreign investors, billionaires, yeah, you may have 100 domestic billionaires, but of less importance. For what importance would you get 100 billionaires with less skills, of which won't even provide an aid or an idea to the unemployed youth? So we rather opt for incentive or foreign domestic or foreign investors, so that we get trained so that the country can reach to its peaks, rather than favoring the domestic investors. Then another thing, you talked of improvement of infrastructures, that if you train your own domestic investors, more infrastructures will have developed in the country. That then, for example,
excuse me, your time is up, Winfred.
So I conclude that team opposition will win the debate through considering tax incentives.
Can you please have a first reply from the opposition?
Members, opposition replies are timed for 2 minutes. So let's try to summarize, but also watch the text space.
Well, we have a problem with our connections, and I hope I can be heard from her phone. This debate actually centered on two main issues as to why, actually, the basic reason is why we should incentivize foreign investors, and yet why we should not actually incentivize them. And team government came here to tell us that it's going to incentivize our local investors. And we team opposition told them, well, they are trying to do that, well, and they are under the cover that they're going to help our own people, but actually they are not helping them. In this case, we told them, we asked them why they think local investors are actually going to be better than foreign investors, and yet they have little income. And team government actually couldn't defend the point. We again came here and told them they are going to say it is going to invest in agriculture, that it is a backbone, and it's actually our own people that are doing it. And ask them, what if they are foreign investors that are actually doing it? What would have happened? They didn't actually answer it. A team government came here and told us that it is not sending away the foreign investors, but in the first place, you ask them if it is not sending them away, how are they going to maintain the international relationship that we have? They failed actually to know it, which means they don't have even any way of trying to solve the problem, and yet it is the actual sense they are using. Dear judges, tonight's debate, we as team government, team opposition, actually are bringing it to the point that if we don't incentivize foreign investment in our own country, then we are going to be losing out. As the team government is saying, it is going to lose out if it doesn't incentivize our local investors. And why do we give them points? What do you tell them? We told them it is going to encourage investments, and yet it is the only investment that we would have had. We asked them a point in the first instance, why they had actually accepted a foreign investment in our own country, and they came to say that they had accepted, but 6% had they had made a loss of 6%. But they have forgotten the 6% loss they are talking about, which people had actually invested in it. It is the foreign investors. We came here to tell them how they are going to solve the problem of unemployment, and yet they cannot actually have the employment opportunities in our own country, and they failed. So basically, analyzing today's debate, we already agree that team opposition takes the next debate according to the want to transpire in the debate. I rest my case.
Okay, can we have the reply speech from the affirmatives?
Basically, the opposition team is run. So there is no proof, their case, no analysis, just assumption that these things are going to work. What haven't they responded to? We say that foreign investors can easily bail out on us. They have no response to that, which means we win on that particular point, which means we can domestic investors on this particular point. Secondly, in relation to these investors, taxes are low. In relation to us, these taxes are high. It is not necessary later on relevant to give them tax incentives if at all, because they are because we are one of the lowest tax jurisdictions in the world, which means that we cannot continue losing this because this tax is low, is high for us, whereas it is low for investors because they have enough money. Secondly, they say we can incentivize both. We say that we still lose because, again, they have an advantage over our local investors because of the fact that we point you towards the technologies they have to produce in their very own countries, which makes it cheaper for them, ladies and gentlemen. They say they bring tech. We do not have reason to believe this will happen because they have more incentive harder for their for investors. In particular case, that means that they would deny them even these these cheap technologies because they don't want them to thrive or to succeed, because they don't want them to compete with them. They say that they bring jobs. We say they bring cheap jobs which are of no value because you do not find Chinese companies employing Ghanaian professionals with a lot of foreign investors. They give jobs that are very, very minute, which are low even, first of all, in dignity and all these kinds of things. They don't employ our all the other people we have. But secondly, we think that they are also utilizing the cheap labor, which is more incentive for them to, without us having to give them tax holidays, ladies and gentlemen. We say that there is profit repatriation. They have no response to that, which means we win on that particular point. They say AfriCell customers, is it gained a lot? We say customers were left stranded. With domestic investors, government has incentive to protect them, because when this happens, because what means profits for domestic investors, it does not mean for the foreign investors, because of the foreign exchange example I gave you on in my prior speech. They say grants and donations are given because of this. We do not have reason to believe that businesses donate. You have never seen Coca-Cola, for example, running an NGO or a fund where it is giving money for free. We also believe that international rules do not operate in the way that Then
I
all
will,
these kinds of things. We propose this motion.
Okay, thank you so much. I was just taking some time to save our recording, but it looks like it's not saved. So I'll kindly request the judges, can we move to the adjudication room while the debaters, please wait for us here. If there are any other people who listened in on the debate, you could actually be giving deliberations to the debaters in this room while we are in the adjudication room. Thank you.